Today, anywhere from 3,000 to 8,000 illegal aliens will cross the border, most disappearing into American society. A wave of illegal immigration affecting every aspect of American life, undercutting wages and jobs for low-skilled Americans and legal immigrants, and crowding classrooms, hospitals, and prisons. Education and American public schools educate their children. The Federation for American Immigration Reform says taxpayers spend $12 billion a year on primary and secondary school education for children here illegally. Another $17 billion for the American-born children of illegal aliens, known as anchor babies. It is federal law to provide free emergency health care to those here illegally. Congress has set aside $1 billion taxpayer dollars each year to reimburse all hospitals. A total, administrators complain, is a fraction of their costs. Meanwhile, employers hire cheap labor with virtually no risk. The Government Accountability Office found only 3 employers fined in 2004 for illegal hiring, down from 417 in 1999.
Now, those benefits go primarily to one group of individuals, and that's employers in industries that hire illegal immigrants intensively: construction, agriculture, hospitality, tourism.
Agriculture is a $5 billion a year industry in San Diego.
We're in the San Pasqual Valley.
Eric Larson is with the Farm Bureau. He says 5,000 family-owned farms in the county would not survive without migrant labor.
So we grow these specialty crops that take a tremendous amount of labor to hand plant, hand care, and hand harvest. If we don't have an abundant workforce of laborers, then we can't have these crops, and those farms will just go away.
Larson says San Diegans benefit from fresh, locally grown produce and open space that might otherwise turn into housing developments.
So without it, the avocado trees that just blanket the hills of Fallbrook, Valley Center, the oranges here in San Pasqual Valley, the nurseries of San Marcos, Vista, Carlsbad, the flower fields, it goes on and on. Without farm workers, those all go away.
Construction and tourism also benefit from the pool of illegal immigrant labor. Their lower labor costs boost profits and cut prices for consumers. So who are the losers?
Among the losers, what we have are workers who compete with illegal immigrants for jobs, and that's a minority of workers in San Diego County. The workers who face the most competition from illegal immigrants would be U.S. workers who haven't completed high school. And so those workers are less than 10% of the total labor force.
San Diego Congressman Brian Bilbray says that's a problem. He says the losers are at the bottom of the economic heap and don't have much political clout.
If illegals were coming to this country taking the professor's job and the lawyer's job, there'd be a lot more outcry in Washington and Sacramento about doing something about it.
But Bilbray says taxpayers are the biggest losers because they're footing the bill for health and education services for illegal immigrants.
The fact is you got a few who are making the money off of this, and they're expecting the general population to carry this, and that needs to be brought up, that the fact is you've got to stop that. The trouble is the very wealthy and very powerful are the ones who are making the most out of this, that are getting the most profit out of this.
The wealthy also use immigrant labor to maintain their mansions and manicure their estates. Hansen says they're winners because the cost savings of using immigrant labor more than balances the taxes they pay that cover health and education for immigrant families.
I'm one of hundreds of thousands of local religious leaders in this country. I've been a pastor for almost 40 years, and that's what I want to be for all my years remaining. And even though I am also in leadership of positions of national and international groups that are dealing with immigration, it is at the local level that I am continually reminded that policy truly does hurt or help people. In my faith tradition, we all started as strangers and aliens, outsiders to the commonwealth of God. But because we have a God who was willing to do what it took to include us at great personal cost, we are no longer strangers and aliens, but fellow citizens, the Bible says. So I find it a high honor to speak to those in power as an advocate for those who have no power. In a verse that would be echoed in many religions, Proverbs 31:8 commands us to speak up for those who cannot speak for themselves. The hope of any religion is that those who have been on the wrong path can be set on the right path. The need for comprehensive immigration reform is to create a path that will help people do the right thing. A broken system produces a dysfunctional society, fractured families, and it increases the vulnerability both of the legal and illegal residents. It helps criminals who thrive in the shadows, and it harms decent people, consigning them to a life of insecurity, hiding, and minimal contribution to the general welfare. A broken system produces both broken and crooked people. A cost to our nation in terms of productivity, national unity, and national security is depressing, but it does not compare with the damage being done to individuals and families. Broken systems tempt many to predatory practices. I cannot count the stories I've heard about attorneys taking the entire life savings of undocumented workers, producing no results, and then abandoning those workers when the money was gone. Is that typical of the profession? We would not believe so. But lead me not into temptation. It is a mighty temptation to deprioritize those who are desperate and too intimidated to raise their voices to complain. And what about employers who take advantage of the powerless because there is no system of accountability? Or the bureaucrats who have no incentive to produce results or even to keep track of paperwork because who will know? Or the talk show hosts that increase their fame and fortune by picturing those without proper papers only as conniving and dangerous parasites instead of persons made in the image of God, deserving both respect and help to do the right thing. We are producing cottage industries of exploitation. We are also hearing millions of stories that are the opposite of the American dream. The urgency for immigration reforms that yields efficiency and compassion cannot be overstated because it is so overdue. Some of the central principles that comprise most major religions are also woven into our country's history and can be used as a standard for immigration reform. These principles that deem each person as valuable, endowed by their Creator, with a dignity that transcends earthly circumstance. Therefore, our system must treat each person respectfully. They acknowledge the family as the bedrock of personal and social development, and support of the family as the foundation of a strong society. Therefore, our system should prioritize the family. They see law not only as necessary for restraining evil, but as needed for structuring healthy relationships. It is right that wrongdoers are restrained and are punished, but it is a better justice when laws yield correction and the redemption of bad circumstances. Therefore, our system should have ways to choose to live upright lives after the penalties for wrong decisions. So for most people of faith, we are hoping for policies that will prioritize family togetherness, respect for the law, personal productivity, and compassion for those who are most helpless. We do not envy you your charge. Immigration reform is a more complex and a politically explosive challenge, but many of us are praying earnestly for you, and we are seeking God's wisdom in this matter. Including the stranger is not just a matter of compassion, but a necessity for greatness. Loving your neighbor as you love yourself is not only a moral commandment, but a path to national nobility. If we can build a nation of families and support networks that not only help the marginalized to be successful, but help the successful to be helpful, then we can better live up to our potential as a people. In the end, I believe our nation will not be judged by the productivity of our budgets, or the genius of our laws, or even the earnestness of our faith communities. We will be judged both by history and by God, by the way we have treated people, especially those who needed our help.
One of my biggest regrets was that we were not able to get comprehensive immigration reform. This country needs comprehensive immigration reform. I don't care whether it is the person who will crawl across the desert to make $5 when they were only making 50 cents, or Sergey Brin, who comes here from Russia and founds Google. At both ends of the spectrum, America has always been able to attract the most ambitious people who are determined to have a better life, and almost always, in determining that they are going to have a better life, make life better for the rest of us. And if we ever lose that and start to believe somehow that it is instead a threat to us to have those people come here, we are going to lose one of the strongest elements of not just our national wealth, but of our national soul.